Welcome back to the On The Ball podcast, another episode of the best potty going around, and we're back for, well, it's not the final, I don't think it's going to be the final episode, but the final episode where we look forward to a game of AFL in 2021. Any future footy content will be either reviewing stuff or looking ahead at the trade period and stuff like that, which I'm sure Roe is very keen for. But today we've got a big episode lined up. Obviously, a huge grand final preview. We're also going to just give our thoughts on the Brownlow that happened on Sunday night. We haven't convened since then, so interested in your takes. And then we're also going to run through the top 8 season reviews. Obviously, Melbourne and the Dogs season maybe our views will change on the weekend, but for the most part, it'll stay the same. So yeah, we'll run through those given that we did the other 10 the other week. So yeah, blockbuster episode, you'd have to say. But before we get into the season reviews, thoughts on the Brownlow, Pilch?
Personally, very happy with the result of the Brownlow. Obviously, first Port rep to get it done. I was surprised at how many votes he polled, but stoked.
Yeah, I think everyone was surprised. The fact that he tied the record when no one even knew who was going to win it doesn't quite add up to me, but yeah, fair play. I was looking before, and his odds to win next year's are like $6. Like, I know he just won this year's, but surely he's not even the favourite going into next year. Like, to me, that just does
They're always so inflated as soon as they win. It's ridiculous, but...
Yeah, and also, yeah, like $6 for anyone for next year. I'm wanting better odds than that. Jeez, like, who knows what could happen? He could do an ACL first round. I am leaning on my wooden desk, so don't worry, Pilch. The Jinx Lords won't come for you. But, Rowie, what were your thoughts on the Brownlow?
That was good. It was close like we all wanted, but I think, it got to the end, and once we saw Wines was level with Bond, we knew Bond sort of tied it out, so that's when we knew Wines was home. But I ended up putting a fair bit of money on it. I think the figure was upward of $500, but came out with about 400. So I lost to about 150. So I mean, it's not the worst result, but no, it was a good night. A few here or there's that was not too happy about with some of the voting, but we'll take it. It was a good night. Hopefully this weekend will be even better.
Yeah, in terms of the team, like most votes per team multis that we addressed last week, who were the ones that let most people's multis down? I haven't really checked who won each club's.
I think Josh Kelly was a big one for the Giants. He was supposed to poll like 5 or 6 more than the others, but Taranto and Hopper caught him and beat him pretty comfortably, so that was annoying. Collingwood, I think lots of people jumped on to Goey, but I think Crisp won that. I think Callum Mills won Sydney's. A few people had Parker. So apart from that, off the top of my head, I can't really remember too much. I remember my prediction of Benny Keys trumped Pilch's of Tex Walker, fair and square. So my man Benny Keys took the cake there. But yeah, apart from that, Zorko one didn't get up. Lions took the chocolates there. Harry Mackay as well for Carlton was a good prediction by a few of us as well. But apart from that, yeah, nothing else too extreme. Took Miller was a shocking one. I thought he polled so much better than he did, but yeah, I just guess the umps didn't really rate him. I know they lost a lot of games by a lot of points, but I thought he was going to be a bit more recognised. But yeah, those were the main ones that screwed me up.
Did he?
I've got to point something out. I was actually the only one that said Crisp for Collingwood, so I'll be...
Well, yeah, you're right. No, you are right. Hoodie said maybe an outsider, but he didn't actually back him in. So, yeah, fair play to you there.
Yeah.
Did Miller win Gold Coast considerably, or like was he?
Yeah, still comfortably. But I don't think he polled 20 votes, and I think lots of people would have had him for that, including me. So, yeah, that was pretty annoying. But I guess lesson learned for playing in a bad team or betting on a bloke that plays in a bad team.
Yeah, obviously, like some of my calls were disgraceful, like Hearn winning, but some of them went all right. In the 5-vote thing, I actually had Taranto above Kelly, but then when I changed it down to 3 votes, Kelly went above him, which is interesting. So obviously they didn't see it that way. But yes, Chris, that's a bit of it. Yeah, I didn't really back to go. And I also backed in Mills, so I'm happy with that one because I thought he was unreal this year. But Anyways, that's enough dribble about that. Into the top 8 sides, as we did the last time we did these season reviews, we're going to be giving out an MVP, a best young player, a most improved, and a rating out of 10 versus the expectation we had coming into the year, 5 being basically bang on our expectations. So we'll go 8 to 1 based on their regular season order. Just quickly, the best young players, like anyone who's born in like 1998 or younger. So yeah, we'll do this, and then we've got the grand final preview to bring us home. So first of all, the Bombers. We'll get Roy to chat about them, as I know he's like a big fan of all their youngsters. How do you think the Bombers went this year?
Obviously surpassed their expectations of bottom 4. I think most people cemented the bottom 4 to be them, the Hawks, and obviously North and the Crows. But obviously to play finals is a huge result for them. They obviously came up against the Dogs, who are now in the granny. So in hindsight, it's obviously, it's no bigger that they obviously lost to them. They did put up a good fight for about a half a footy. But yeah, it was overall a really good season, really promising. All their youngsters really took part in the competition, especially early on with Nick Cox. Apparently he's 200 centimetres. I don't know if anyone knows. But yeah, I think the MVP probably goes to Zach Merritt there, just pipping Darcy Parish. I think obviously just a bit more consistent throughout the entirety of the season. Parish obviously had his really strong run of form in the middle of that period, but I think Merritt was just a bit more reliable. Best young player, probably Archie Perkins might have to give it to, like it was probably between him and Nick Cox, and I think it's the same argument with Merritt and Parish, probably just a bit more consistent. And most improved, I think Parish is the obvious one that most people can go for, but shout-outs to, I think, Will Snelling, who I think came third in their best and fairest the other night, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's Hammers man. So he's obviously had a really strong season for them, and really well deserved, considering I think he was taken in the mid-season rookie draft, I think in the same year as Marlon Pickett. So obviously revitalised his career. So that's really good to see from him. But yeah, I'm expecting just sort of the same stuff from the Bombers this next season. Expect them to be thereabouts around the top 8 or maybe just missing out, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, Will Snelling's an elite story. If I'm not mistaken, Pilch, I think he was just twiddling his thumbs in the Port Magoos, and then, as you mentioned,
Correct.
got a chance, I think, in the 2019 mid-season, and ever since then, yeah, he's been a pretty solid piece of that Essendon midfield. My awards, I'll give my MVP to Parish just ahead of Merritt, obviously using my voting system here. So, yeah, he whipped out a lot of 5 voters. Most improved, Parish as well. No, it's a bit boring, but he was a weapon. And best young player, people probably don't think of this guy as young, but he was born in 1998. All Australian squad snubbing, and that's the Jordan Ridley Supercoach Godman. Well, he was Supercoach Godman for like a month and sort of just became average. But yeah, a bit of a weapon in the back half for the Bombers, one of their more consistent players. And then rating out of 10, I'll be honest, probably going to go close to a 10 here, considering like for a team to go from bottom 3, bottom 2, bottom 4 expectations to then making finals, and like people thought they were maybe a chance of upsetting the Dogs. I'll maybe give them a 9 voter, but they did also re-sign Merritt, which is a pretty big positive for them. Yeah, I'll give them a 10. Why not? Back them in. Huge season. There were like no one really knew what to expect from their coach, and he looks like he's going to be a pretty good one. So yeah, what he's doing, getting out of that squad, is a lot better than what some coaches are getting out of their lists, aka Carlton. So yeah,
I forgot to give them a rating as well. I'm going to give them a 9 as well.
Yeah, 9. Good stuff. Pilch, what do you reckon about the Bombers?
Yeah, hit the nail on the head. I think I had them maybe even bottom 2 in my preseason prediction, and they've pulled out a top 8 finish with a lot of young talent, very deep midfield, so a lot to be excited about. And I'm going to have to give Merritt the MVP, Ridley young player, and Parish most improved.
Yeah. Kill season, really. Like, I feel like their expectations almost updated to where they were in the ladder, like halfway through the year. But if you look at it as a whole, the fact that they made finals is outrageous. But yeah, they're probably still sour that they haven't won a finals yet. But finals game, but that'll come. Can't see why they can't improve next year. All right, the Giants, Pilch. Giants are up there. Actually, do you like the Giants or the Swans? I always get confused. I like them both. But the Giants, how do you think they went this year?
Yeah, I like them both, but the Swannies are my second favourite. But yeah, Giants were another interesting one. They kind of had an up and down year, but they just kind of grinded out wins and ended up seventh, which was higher than I had them, higher than most people had them. So definitely not a bad season. I think next year again they're going to be kind of 50-50, tough to predict side from my views, but we'll see what happens. MVP Josh Kelly, I think as we went over before, snubbed at the Brownlow. Young player Taranto and most improved Sam Taylor down back.
Is Taranto still considered young?
Yeah, 1998.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, he's one of those blokes that can't remember who it was. I think Jai Simpkin I said last time, where everyone's like, "Are they really 1998?" But yeah, he's just pretty much as soon as he came into the midfield, he was just played like a reliable veteran. But yeah, I've actually given Taranto my MVP and best young player, and then agree with the Sam Taylor call. Huge year for Leon Cameron, I think. I was one of the people who was sort of saying he was in the hot seat coming into this year. I think if they finished like 10th or lower, I think his job could have been in trouble, but because of sort of like not as hectic as Collingwood, but they sort of fell out of a premiership window pretty fast. But yeah, what they did this year, they had a lot of big scalps. And yeah, good season, I'd have to say. They've got some issues to sort out this offseason, mainly goal scorers, really. They don't, and I think Jeremy Finlayson might be leaving, whatever. But yeah, they've got to sort that out because I don't think you can just back in Harrison Himmelberg as your number one key forward in a finals match. But I'm sure they'll figure something out there. Rating out of 10, probably give them the 7. I think it was not too much better than what we were expecting, but yeah, wouldn't have predicted them to make finals and win a finals game either. So yeah, fair play to Leon Cameron and the Orange Tsunami. Rowie, what do you think about the Giants?
Yeah, obviously, given the talent they've got on their list, I think I was half expecting them to make finals again. I can't recall if I had them in my top 8 prediction or not. I feel like I might have, but I didn't expect them to bottom out or, fall down the ladder like lots of people did. I just think, yeah, like I said, the talent on the list was just too good for that to happen. And obviously, yeah, to get into the finals, but also win that match as well was huge. And they also took it to Geelong right up until the last quarter. I don't know if that was the impact of the commentators still trying to make a game out of it or not, when it was like a 5-goal margin in the last. But anyway, it was good efforts from them. But like you said, Hammers definitely need to address that tall forward line. I think Hogan was a good inclusion. I think he was a bit risky, but they didn't give up much for him, so it didn't really matter. But it's obviously played his role there, but was obviously out in that semi-final, which was a bit of a bummer because that was going to be a really strong attack and definitely would have made the game a lot more difficult to predict. So whether they continue with the Hogan-Himmelberg combination, we'll wait and see. But yeah, my MVP is just going to go to Toby Green. I think he's probably their most valuable player if you want to stretch out the definition. He's just the absolute match winner for them. And he's the only player in the comp really that does that. I mean, they can go forward, kick 5 goals, or play in the midfield and have an incredible impact. There's obviously lots of players that can do that, but Toby does it in his own way. Best young player. Short disclaimer, I actually didn't realise that the age was 1998 onwards, so I'm sort of more just going to go for the genuine kids of like 2000 and beyond. So I'll let these boys tackle the slightly better ones because I would have gone for Ridley, obviously, but I'll go Lockie Ash. I think Lockie Ash provided the dash off halfback a lot of the times. He tore apart Collingwood earlier in the year, which was a bit of a breakout game for him. So I think it's going to be really exciting in the years to come. I think next year might be another just breakout year for him, hopefully. Most improved, probably Jacob Hopper. Not many saw us. Not many would have predicted Hopper coming in the All-Australian top 40. I would have probably thought Josh Kelly was going to be in there over him, but super consistent and just an absolute inside bull for them if they didn't have enough already. There's forced Cornelio out of that midfield, and yeah, he's just going to be a really solid player for them. Overall, the rating, we give them an 8. I think lots of people obviously saw them falling down the ladder, and there was a decent chance of it happening, but the fact that they were able to stick in the top of the competition, make the finals, win a final as well was huge. And also, I think, going to be factoring in the fact that Josh Kelly re-signed for 7 years. So, yeah, with the Giants, whenever they get someone signed for that long, it's obviously a huge deal. So yeah, I'm going to give them an 8, and depending on off-season stuff, what happens, I'm probably going to be expecting them to finish top 8 next year as well.
Yeah, very exciting times for the Giants. Yeah, big re-signing that. I have to say, I freaking hate long contracts. Like anything longer than 4 years, I can't stand because, oh yeah, I just think it's shit. But anyway, fair play to Kelly getting the bag, and he'll definitely be good for like another 3 or 4 or 5 years. But not sure what it'll be like when he's about 42 in his final year. Yeah, Lockie Ash, big fan of him. He's my favorite kind of player. The booming kick off the half back. He got dropped like through the middle of the year, but standard Leon Cameron behaviour, just dropping good players. But yeah, hopefully he keeps his progression going because he'll be a good player in the future. All right, the Schwannies go back to Pilch, given they are his number 2. Huge year for the Schwannies. I think Horse Longmire pulled some absolute miracles, really. Fastest rebuild ever. How'd you see their season, mate?
Yeah, just an incredible season, pretty much. It's the only way you can sum it up. Longmire's clearly one of the best in the business, and all their young talent just looks unreal as well, especially these new draft picks. Goulden looks like he's going to be an absolute beast. Pretty hard not to give them a 10 out of 10, to be honest. I think they're going to be right up there next season around the top 4, pushing for a flag again. So well done to them. MVP, I think Callum Mills was slightly better than Parker this season. So I'm going to give that to him. Best young player, McCartan, just a rocket fullback. And most improved, Justin McInerney.
Yeah, actually, big fan of McInerney. I'm probably not going to give them a 10, to be honest. I think the fact that they didn't win that finals game was a bit of a downer, but yeah, I'll probably go a 9. Apparently, Horse Longmire wasn't even like nominated for the coaches award. Like he wasn't even in the list, like the top 4 or whatever, which I thought was outrageous. But
Yeah, that's outrageous.
yeah, I reckon he, like, I'd genuinely make a case that he deserves it. In over the whole thing, not just a nomination. But yeah, MVP, I've got Mills, young player McCartan, and improved. I've actually got Mills as well because I think this is the first year. We've always seen how good he can be, but whether it be through maybe not utilising him correctly or there was just better players standing in the way. I think this is the first year where I've really seen that he can be a all-Australian type midfielder, just week in, week out, absolute beast. Roy, Schwannies?
Yeah, so lots of us obviously didn't see this coming. I think even round 1 when they flogged Brisbane at the Gabba was obviously a huge statement, and they actually stuck with it. So huge kudos to them. Obviously didn't get the job done in the finals, though. I think it was all building up for them to really take it to the top teams in the finals. They obviously challenged and beaten a lot of them throughout the year. So to fall in their first game, I mean, albeit by a point, and they should have definitely won, especially in that last quarter, but still obviously hurts the way that we're going to see that season. But all in all, obviously got a really young list, and I can't see them falling because of that. I think they're only just going to get better. So MVP for me, I think Pilch hit it on the head. Callum Mills probably just edges out Parker. Best young player, I'll give it to Errol Goulden. Absolute raking left foot. Obviously already one of the best kicks in the competition, and is going to be setting up whichever tall forward is going to be kicking the goals in the years to come, with Buddy probably going to be finishing up soon. Most improved, probably Tom Hickey, with Gawn and Grundy and big Sean Darcy taking the spotlight for much of the competition. Tom Hickey was obviously played a huge part for the Swans. Obviously had a huge ruck problem, but bringing him in for next to nothing and then playing the role he did was absolutely huge for them. So give them the most improved, and given they were obviously had a really strong season, given their expectations, but to fall short in just the first game of the finals when we all thought they may go deep, means I'm going to not rate them as highly as you guys. I'll give them an 8.5 out of 10, though.
Yeah, fair enough. Very good scores across the board. Going to be an interesting off-season for Sydney, I think, because like Dawson's leaving, Hewitt's probably leaving, Dylan Stevens might be leaving, so they've got some things to answer, but
I think Dylan Stevens re-signed, by the way.
Oh, really? That's good news for them. But the likes of like Braden Campbell and Logan McDonald, we didn't even really see much of them, and definitely not the best of them this year. So there's a lot more progression to come for the Schwannies. Also, good to see Buddy back and just playing a lot more this year. That was one of the highlights of the season, I reckon. Doggies, obviously, the first grand final participant we'll be covering here. To make the grand final from 5th on the ladder is a pretty good achievement, but not really the biggest surprise given how great they were during the regular year. Rowie, what did you make of the Doggies season?
It was given last year, they obviously had a huge amount of talent, especially in that midfield, but to fall short to the mighty Saints was disappointing. But, we knew that they were going to be more hungry this year, given more games in Melbourne and just given the heartbreak of losing in the finals, especially in a close game, that always hurts. So it was no surprise that they came out and, really took the competition by storm. Obviously, the resurgence of Josh Bruce up forward helped for the majority of the year. And just, the midfield, we all thought is just, they got too many players. Where's everyone to play? But no, I think it showed to be as versatile as it needed to be. And then players coming out and improving like they did, like Bailey Dale, for example, of halfback. Who would have thought that, 12 months ago, you'd be saying Bailey Dale's an all-Australian halfback? Obviously, those little factors all combined and chipped in. Obviously, they finished 5th, which given their slow end to the season, but the fact that they're making another grand final from outside the top 4 is huge for them. So for that reason, I'm going to give them a 9.5 rating. I know it was pretty harsh not to give them a 10, but I just think I think most of us predicted them to be top 8. And they actually did finish 5th, probably roughly where lots of us had them. And they didn't come out of the top 8 or anything. So I'll give them outside of the top 8. Sorry, I'll give them a 9.5. MVP to the Bont. Obviously, just finished 2nd in the Brownlow the other night. We'll see if he's got arguably a better medal around his neck though tomorrow night. Best young player, I'll give it to Cody Waitman. Obviously, he's got his fair share of fans and haters, but no, I love him. Obviously, a Bloods boy. I'm sure all of us do, but obviously can't wait to see him play tomorrow night. Hopefully sit on a few heads, and there's a huge target for them up forward. And most improved, got to be Bailey Dale, like I mentioned before, off that half-back. He's got one of the best kicks in the competition. So, can't wait to watch him tomorrow night and see what happens.
Yeah, definitely a huge year. I'm actually going to give them a 9. Probably harsh for a team that could potentially be the premiers, but I feel like they've actually underperformed the last few seasons. So, the fact that they were a premiership contender wasn't really it was a very good effort to bounce back from where they were, but I don't think it was outrageous. Where I think the fact that Melbourne were premiership contenders was more outrageous. So, I'll give them a 9 regardless of if they win. A very good year though. Yeah, MVP the Bont. Best young player, obviously, we've gone a bit older, so the Baz Lenka, and most improved. I've actually given it to Libba, obviously very high in my voting thing. Most clearances in the whole AFL and across the regular season. If you told me that at the start of the year, would have bitten your hand off, because that would have just been outrageous call. And also the fact that he gets tagged in a midfield with Bont, McRae, Treloar, Dunkley, all those blokes, just shows how much of an impact he has when he's, allowed to do his own thing. So, I think he's sort of I think he was genuinely stiff not to make the All-Australian team this year. I think he was that good, but sort of just got unfairly treated due to the fact that he's seen as a bit of a third wheel to McRae and Bont, which is fair enough because they are elite players. So, huge year from Libba. And as I mentioned, 9 out of 10. Love Cody. Might talk about him later for one of my predictions for the final. Pilch, what did you make of the Dogs?
Very good. As you said, they've underperformed. The last 5 years, they've had this insane list, particularly midfield, and they've just hovered around that 7 to 10 mark. And then I think this year they just finally sorted out their consistency, because they've always had the ability to beat the good teams, but they've also lost some pretty average games, and they sorted that out this year, got themselves into a granny. So for that, I am going to give them a 10 out of 10, because I don't think you could have asked for much more as a Dogs fan. And then Bontempelli MVP, clearly. Aaron Norton, clearly young player for me over Smith. I think he's one of their most valuable players. If you take him out of the equation, I think their forward line goes to shit. And most improved, Bailey Dale.
Yep, Dale had an absolute blinder. Going to be interesting to see what happens, because they've got quite a few talented players in their Magoos that surely get ripped apart by the other team's scouts who come pecking, but we'll see what happens there. Onto the top 4 sides, the Brizzy Lions. A bit of an interesting season for Brisbane, I'd have to say. I think if you split it up into quarters, there's like 2 really good quarters and then 2 maybe not so. I think it was about round 7 or 8. They were like my number 1 seed in the whole competition. And then they sort of went off the boil throughout the middle. And then by the end, we were saying they were a smoky for finals. So, it was a bit of a weird one. Not really progression, but I don't know if that's what we were really expecting. In terms of my award winners, MVP Daniel Rich, obviously. The algorithm loves Danny Rich, biggest kicker in the comp, which is an underrated trait. So he's my MVP.
Wrong on that one, but
oh my god, yeah, we get it. Port have apparently 4 of the top 5 biggest kickers. Maybe it's just because you watch Port week in, week out. But Hugh McCluggage, best young player, absolute dog act, including him in that. But anyway, and then most improved, I've actually gone Zorko. I know he was an elite player before this year, but for me, he was genuinely their best midfielder this year, and probably was the 3rd or 4th wheel last year. So I think that's a pretty huge progression in itself. Rating, I actually have no idea where I predicted them to come, to be honest, but I'll give them I don't know. Actually, tough. I'll probably give them a 6 out of 10. It's probably a bit harsh, but like, I'm pretty sure they were top 4 last year, so I don't think they really overperformed or anything like that. So yeah, Pilch, thoughts? Oh, you don't like Brisbane. Sorry about that, but yeah, what are your thoughts on the Lions?
For me,
don't mention Dan McStay.
No, I won't mention Dan McStay. He's had enough mentions on this podcast. But yeah, for me, the Lions actually had a very disappointing season. They showed their glimpses of being the best team in the comp, but overall, they fell from equal first to what should have been 5th, out in straight sets. One of the finals was at the Gabba, out in straight sets again. So I don't think the fans have much to be happy about with this season, considering how good their team's meant to be. So I'm going to give them a 5 out of 10. MVP Jared Lyons, was stoked to see him actually poll well on the Brownlow, showing that he's finally getting some credit. And then Starcevic for both the other 2 awards for me.
Yeah, fair enough. Huge year for him. I'm actually tempted to downgrade my rating from 5 because now that I think about it, it's probably exactly where we expected them. But no, I'll keep it at 6. Also, shout out to Cam Rayner. That was a bit of a downer on their year. That would have been exciting to see him run through the guts. Rowie,
they were stiff with injuries all year.
Yeah, that's true. Rowie, thoughts on the Lions?
You guys summed up pretty well. I think we all expected them to be sort of top 4, top 6, and they just stuck into 4th. But yeah, like you said, Hammer, was obviously in periods of the year where they're either premiership favourites or smokies to miss. So, I mean, for a top team like we've seen now the last few years, we really do need to start seeing some success, and we're just not seeing it when it matters. So the MVP, as you said, Pilch, great to see Jared Lyons getting some recognition on Brownlow night, so he will claim my MVP. Best young player, just for the bit of variety, I think Caden Coleman was huge for them. Obviously offers a bit of dash, a bit of speed, and some really nice ball use. Most improved Brandon Starcevic as well. Obviously flies under the radar a lot at the moment, but fully expect him to be an All-Australian lockdown defender. I think he's that good. Just no one can kick goals off him if you look at the stats. And yeah, given another year going out in straight sets, even when having home finals, obviously not ideal. But yeah, I think going to give them just a 5. I was tempted to give them a 4.5 or a 4, but they still finished top 4 and all that. So I can't say they exceeded expectations, but it'd be too harsh to go lower. So they're going to take a 5 for me.
Yeah, I didn't give him my best young award, obviously, but shout out to Devin Robertson, long-time member of the Hugh Janus Supercoach side, but more importantly, I reckon he looks like he's going to be a really, really good player, and I think in a couple of years he'll be one of the big 3 Lions players, just going every centre bounce. I reckon he'll be a beast. But yeah, looking forward to Cam Rayner. They've got some exciting talent. Zach Bailey as well had a really, really good year. So shout outs to him. All right, top 3, Geelong. I'll let Rowie go through Geelong. I don't know what to say for Geelong.
Yeah, I mean, coming into this year, I expected them to be the premiership favourites. I think their list was incredible, especially given their off-season acquisitions. But yeah, all in all, obviously they finished third and all that, made the prelim, got heavily defeated. But yeah, on paper, making it third and to the prelim suggests they had a very strong season. But if you read deeper into it, they just collapsed on themselves later in the year. Their game plan was flawed. It was too slow, as we all saw. Melbourne just completely monstered them in that prelim. So yeah, it wasn't ideal for the Cats at all. Their aging list didn't help them. When they obviously thought experience was going to be the way to go this year, and I thought it was going to be the way to go, especially in this final series. Sorry, when there's so much uncertainty, I thought it was going to be the Cats that come away with it. But I was clearly wrong and was happy to be wrong because I hate Geelong. So yeah, It was obviously we all expected them to finish in that top four, and they did. We expected them to make the prelim, and they did, but obviously fell short to a much better team. So MVP for me goes to Cam Guthrie. Obviously one of the players that played a huge role for them this year and could always rely on. Best young player that literally no one. So for once, I'm actually going to wind it back to 1999 to Jack Henry. Obviously a huge player for them, really versatile and all that. Most improved, I'm going to give it to Brad Close. I think at the latter half of the year, he became a pretty important player for them, especially in the last few games. With all the stars running out there and disappointing for fans, I think lots of fans were actually, showing their loving for Brad Close. His ball use was exceptional and really good hands on him as well. So a bit of an unsung hero in those last few games, which they obviously fell short, but I think he was really improved player and cemented his spot in that best 22. But yeah, going to give him a rating of 5 out of 10. Didn't exceed any expectations. But like I said, probably be too harsh to give him below a 5. I think it's pretty harsh to give a team that finished in the top 8 and played finals below a 5. But yeah, unfortunately, I think their time's nearly up. All these play. Look, everyone says that they've done it before. It's happened before, but all these players are going to run out at the exact same time. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with them because it's not like you can go and recruit 10 mature age players in an off season. It just realistically won't happen. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the years to come for them. But for this season, I'm going to give them a 5.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be a bit harsher. I just think if you told me Richmond didn't make finals and West Coast, I would have probably predicted that Geelong's odds would be about $1.20. Like I just think, and as you mentioned, Roy, in a year of uncertainty, the other teams in the top 5 who are really the only premiership contenders, none of them really have shown themselves to be like proven weapons in finals. I know Geelong haven't really either, but they've had the experience. They've been there enough. I would have thought they would have won the premiership if Richmond and West Coast weren't there. So, yeah, for me, it's probably a 3. They had some bad injury luck, but that's actually just going to happen if you have an old team. Obviously, older players are more likely to get injured. So I don't think you can let them off the hook for that one. But in saying that, I know like Cameron was injured a lot. Danger, don't know if he was healthy at all. And Tom Stewart obviously went down late. Speaking of Tommy Stewart, here's my MVP. Just reckon I know a lot of people bag him out, maybe saying that like his super coach is just a better reflection of him as a player than what he actually does in the game. But I think that's not true. I think he's actually a really, really good defender. Brandon Parfitt's my best young player. I know no one really gives a shit about Brandon Parfitt with the greatest respect, but I think he's a pretty handy player. And most improved, Jack Henry or Finn Smith, if you look on his Wikipedia. I'm not sure what that is about, but I tell you what, there's some strange things on some of the lesser known players, AFL players' Wikipedias. Like I was on Liam Duggan's the other day, and he is currently a member of Mandalorian FC, which I can only assume is his pro club's team name. Otherwise, I'm very confused as to what that is. Lockie mentioned maybe indoor soccer, which could also be true, but yeah. And then shout out to Brad Close. Rhett hates him for some reason, but yeah, he started picking up votes in a star-started lineup towards the end of the year, which is not an easy thing to do. Pilch, another hater of Geelong. I'm not sure why I keep introducing you like that, but what do you think of the Cats season?
Yeah, you boys painted the picture. And as you alluded to, I think it's going to take a lot for them to maintain it next year. Just extremely old list. And as we've seen in the past, when an old team just gets absolutely slaughtered in finals, I know it wasn't a grand final, but the qualifying final, they got smashed, prelim smashed by even more. We've seen it with Port in 2007, the Giants in 2019. The following year, that's it. So I think there's a genuine chance that it happens to Geelong. In terms of awards, I had Guthrie, but I'm actually going to change it to Stewart, copy Corker. I think he's more integral to their team, as we saw when he got injured. Just they kind of fell to shit. Best young player, I avoided the 23-year-olds for this, and there was absolutely no one, so I've given it to Max Holmes. And when you're giving your team's Young Player of the Year award to Max Holmes, I think that paints the picture. Nothing else needs to be said there. And most improved, Jack Henry. He's a gun.
Yeah. I can't believe Jack Henry's turned out to be good. We loved him in his rookie year because he would make some strange faces out there, a bit like Phil Jones of Man United fame, but he's actually a pretty good player. I was just forgotten to mention, like, another reason why I've rated them so poorly is they didn't just lose in a prelim, they got absolutely annihilated. And I don't know, they're just such a frustrating team. Like, Quinton Narkle is an absolute beast, and they just, like, someone like that should be playing every game. Like, I don't care if there's someone like Sean Higgins or something on your squad. Narkle's a better player than him, just pick him. But anyways, as you guys mentioned, very interested to see what they do in the next couple of years, because this strategy definitely has an expiry date. Second last team we will cover, Port Adelaide. Obviously, Pilch got the Port beanie on, big Port Adelaide fan. So we'll just go straight to him. I won't talk any dribble first. What do you make of the power season, mate?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to keep it brief. Very good season and underrated season until the last game, which was just a huge disappointment. That's about it. That last game, that result's pretty much taken my rating from a 9 or 10 all the way down to a 5 or 6, given expectations. I think to make the grand final was a must, and we failed miserably in the end. So I'm going to give a 5 out of 10. MVP has to be Ollie Wines, Brownlow medal winner. Young player between Rosie and Drew, I'll give it to Connor just because he's younger and, probably deserves it anyway. And then most improved, another tough one between Amon and Aaliyah, but going to give the edge to Carl Amon.
Yeah, very good year from those three guys. I'm actually going to be a bit harsher in my rating. I'm going to give them a 4. As you mentioned, I think Par was probably a grand final performance. I think the two hurdles they had to overcome was winning a prelim and also learning how to beat the big teams in the regular season, which they just didn't show that they can do it all. So that was really disappointing. One thing that I did like, though, is I was a bit concerned at the start of the season with the likes of, Jonas, Boat, Gray, their season's coming to an end. I thought that was a pretty big core and Dixon as well. I thought that was a big core of Port Adelaide's side that would be taken out, but there was a lot of players who took a lot of steps forwards, the likes of Bergman. Frederick, when he played, he looked really, really good. Burton also seemed to take a few steps forward. So I'm not too worried about that now. So 4, maybe a 5, but I'll give them a 4 just because they got pumped in the prelim. MVP, Ollie Wines, just ahead of Boki. Young player, I've given it to Drew. He's like, we saw him in his rookie season, had a couple blinders, and they just sort of seemed to be a 1-for-1, either him or Rocky in the team. They obviously went with Rockcliffe, but this year, pretty happy that they finally decided to give Drew week in, week out games, and he sort of repaid the faith, I think. And then most improved, I know this is Rogue because he's the MVP, but I'm giving it to Wines as well. I don't even know if he was a Port Adelaide top 5 best player last year, and now he's their best. So, fair play to Ollie Wines. Rowie?
So I think most of us had them finishing where they did, and for that reason, my rating isn't going to be too dissimilar from you guys. Obviously, to get blown away in that final was pretty disappointing for all fans, except the Dogs. So I get the only difference between that and I guess the Cat season is the fact that Port, only tripped up in one game, whereas the Cats, tripped up in the back half of the season. So for that reason, I'm giving them a 6 out of 10, so one rating point higher. So, yeah, slightly exceeded my expectations because I think the whole form throughout the whole year suggested they were definitely a grand final chance. They definitely were going into that preliminary final as well after smashing the Cats in the qualifying. But, yeah, obviously tripped up in that one game. MVP to obviously Ollie Wines, Brownlow winner, huge year for him. Best young player. There's obviously a few, which is what's great about Port. Just to recognise the slightly younger players, I might just give it to Miles Bergman to play as many games as he did in that Port Adelaide lineup is really impressive for him. So good on him. Most improved, yeah, it's really just a flip of the coin between Aaliyah and Amon, but might give it to Aaliyah given he made the All-Australian team, which is obviously a huge feat. So, yeah.
Yeah, I hope Sydney are happy with their decision to back in Tom McCartan over Aaliyah, but yeah, excited for Port next year, to be honest. There's reports that they're in for another big free agent, which would be impressive for salary cap reasons. But yeah, the likes of Bergman and stuff, and even Butters and Dersma, I think they can still make a few big steps forward next year, which is going to be really exciting to watch. And then finally, Melbourne, the minor premiers and the favourites for the grand final. Huge year from them. I don't think anyone expected this. Obviously, we saw it in, I believe, 2018, where they came top four, and then since then, they've been pretty underwhelming. So it's sort of hard to know what's the real Melbourne, whether we should have been expecting 2018 or 2019 and 20, but you do have to say they've performed well above expectations. I'll just come out with it straight away. For me, it's probably a 10, regardless of the grand final outcome. I was tempted to say a 9, and then if they win a 10, but I think either way, it's a 10. They've just got such an exciting list, and yeah, I can't see why they're not going to be good for a long time to come, really. MVP, I've given it to Klolivar just ahead of Petrarca. Obviously, they've got a really good 5 or 6 senior players, but I think Klolivar trumps the lot, and the fact that he's only born in 1997 is just crazy. Best young player, I'll be honest, I did not know who to give it to. I know Luke Jackson won the Rising Star, but I gave it to James Jordan. He's not even picked for the grand final, but yeah, he looks like he'll be a good player in the future. Most improved, I've actually given it to Jake Lever. He was obviously a weapon when he came over from Adelaide, and I think his first couple of years at Melbourne were very underwhelming. I think last year he was a lot better. But yeah, I think this year he's right back, if not even better than what he has ever been in his AFL career. And his tandem with Stephen May and the third tall defender, whether it be Petty or Tomlinson, is quite comfortably the best defense, tall defense in the competition. So yeah, I think he's improved a lot. But yeah, and yeah, as I mentioned, rating 10. Bro, your thoughts on the D season?
Oh. Sorry, I was just on mute. Obviously, no one really saw this one coming. But yeah, it's great to see because obviously Melbourne fans have had it tough for a lot. For a long period of time. So yeah, to come from predictions of outside the top 8 to finish top of the ladder to hit their form in final series and make the grand final and be the favourites, obviously huge for them. I don't predict them to be like the how when Richmond during their dynasty every single year, I mean it's only just happened. It was only for about 4 or 5 years, but we'd go in thinking, yeah, Richmond's gonna be the favourite. Yeah, Richmond's gonna be the favourite. Blah blah. I don't think Melbourne's gonna have that same impact of just that next elite level, and no one else can trump them. I think they'll obviously be up there, top 4 favourites for the flag and all that. But I just given the fact that there's still slight weaknesses in their team, which is obviously silly to say given the last few weeks that they've had. But, their forward line isn't packed full of stars. I know Fritsch, I still don't 100% rate him as highly as other people do. And, Ben Brown isn't the player he used to be. But so for that reason, I don't expect them to have these huge, this favourite year in, year out like Richmond did and Hawthorn did obviously back in the day. But still expect them to be really strong for the next few years, and it's going to be really exciting to see. But yeah, for this season, I'm going to give the MVP to Clayton Oliver. Obviously, a huge year in that midfield. Just took his game to just yet another level. I think he was talked negatively for a few years about his ball use and all that, and he's just made everyone that said that look silly this year. He's obviously an absolute weapon, can just do everything. He's just about the complete midfielder. And to have the games like he has against, I think we saw it against Adelaide this year, where, he collected like 35 touches, kicked 3 goals, just was one of the most dominant performances that a midfielder's had in the AFL ever. It was absolutely huge. Best young player, obviously a few candidates for this one. I'll give it to Cosy Pickett just because I love him in that forward line. He's going to be so exciting. I actually didn't realise he's kicked as many goals as he did. I think he's kicked 40 this year, which is
Shit.
which is huge for him as just like a pressure forward and like his first genuine proper full year of football. It was unreal for him. And yeah, it's just, I think there was a few doubts when they drafted him, but he's obviously absolutely exceeded those expectations. So that was huge. And most improved, I'll shed a bit of light on Luke Jackson here as well. Obviously the Rising Star Award, and he's, the fact that the Freo asked for him in return for Chero just shows how good he is. So yeah, I think it'd be silly not to give him a rating out of 10. So that's what I'm going to be giving them.
Yeah, I'll be honest. When they took a ruckman that high in the draft, I was like, "What the fuck?" Like Gorney. But they've obviously proven me wrong. That's proven to be a very good draft pick. Yeah, I agree with your call about the dynasty. Like, I think for the next few years, every time someone wins a premiership, we're going to be very quick to jump and say, like, this is the next, big team. But I think we've got to accept that Richmond and Hawthorn and having them in such a close vicinity, I think is pretty freakish and an anomaly. So I'll be shocked if another team for the next decade wins like another 3 in a row or 3 out in 4, because that's pretty rare. Pilch, to round us off, mate, thoughts on the D season?
Yeah, they literally just did a Richmond 2017, just absurd season. Like, I don't know how they've done it. As a fan, you literally cannot ask for any more, in my opinion. It's just like, it's prime example of quality of list is not everything. I think they've just had a insane preseason. Everyone's just come in, played their role to the best of their abilities, and you wouldn't want to be a fan of any other club. So congrats, and yeah, very interested to see what happens next season. But in terms of awards, well, firstly, rating, certainly a 10 out of 10. Awards, Petrarca MVP, controversial, but I think he's arguably the number one player in the comp for impact. Young player, Pickett, and most improved, Jackson.
I can't believe Pickett kicked 40 goals. That's cooked. And hasn't Fritsch kicked like 50 or something? Like, they just seem to rack up the goals when you don't really realise. All right, time for our grand final preview. Obviously going to put a bit more attention on this than the average game, but really excited for this one, to be honest. I haven't actually watched that much of Melbourne this year. Watched quite a bit of the Dogs, but really excited to see. I don't know if it's going to be close or not. I was looking through the history of the grand finals in the 21st century, and there's not been many close ones. The Lions 7.5, Melbourne are the favourites. There's only been 4 since 1990, 4 grand finals that have been decided by 7.5 points or less. So probably, as Rowie has mentioned in the past, whoever you go head to head, like if you're backing Melbourne head to head, back them at the line as well, because that's pretty small margin. Just before we get into our predictions, just a couple discussion points. Rowie, do you reckon... I'll go to Pilch, actually. Do you think that Harms will go to Libba after what happened in the prelim, even though you guys tagged Libba, or do you reckon they'll change it up and let him run free?
I'd have to check what happened when the Bulldogs beat them toward the end of the regular season, but I'm going to say he doesn't.
Tagged Libba in that one, so yeah, it's going to be... I actually have no idea what they're going to do. Because normally I would say definitely tag Libba, but as you mentioned, they beat them last time while tagging Libba, and they've just beaten a team by about 100 points with Libba being tagged. So maybe they don't go with it. I don't know. Well, Harms is the perfect play to do it, but yeah, that's a big one. And then Rowie, I think another big question mark for me about, this is probably the one weakness, I'd say Melbourne, well, next to their forward line, but in this matchup especially, Mitch Hannon and Cody Waitman, 2 very dangerous players. Hannon kicked 2 last time that these played, and he was pretty high, and Supercoach, I assume he had a good game. And then against Port, he kicked 3 and had 2 behind, so could easily kick 4 or 5. Who do you think of the matchups for this? I think last time, well, actually, I don't know if Cody. No, I'm pretty sure last time Hibbard went to Waitman, but yeah, what do you reckon they do about Hannon and Waitman?
Yeah, I mean, I've never really heard anyone describe Hannon as dangerous, but it's good to shed some light on him like that. Yeah, I think they've brought in Hibbard for this reason. They've obviously got the 3 tools of Petty, May, and Lever will be going to Shacky, English, and Norton. I think Rivers has been playing a lockdown role a lot this year, so I think it'll be a combination of Rivers and Hibbard will be taking care of those two, and then they'll let Salem obviously use his boot up the ground, and I think he'll play that sort of half role on whoever else plays in that forward line. And yeah, I think Harms might even play a role in that back line there as well. But yeah, I think it's going to be mainly between Hibbard and Rivers. I think those are their 2 primary lockdown defenders for the guys obviously aren't tall forwards. So yeah, I think it's just going to be both of those 2 going to be stick on those other 2 for most of the match.
Yeah, definitely interested to see how that plays out. I think Waitman's a really hard player to match up on, so I reckon he might kick a few. But yeah, definitely interested to see that one. I think that would, if the doggies do get up, I think those 2 will have a big say in it. All right, score predictions, boys. Pilch, who are you going with, and by how much?
Melbourne 89-56, 33-point margin. I think fairly close game up until the last, with the Bulldogs hanging on type thing, and then Melbourne just run them out in the last quarter.
Yeah, that's so close to mine. Not even kidding.
Same
I've got Melbourne 91-64, paying $1.64 head to head. But yeah, look, at the moment, if we're breaking my favorite, who I think is going to win into a percentage, I don't want to jinx him, but it'd probably have to be about 80-20 at this point. I'm backing Melbourne heavily, and yeah, I'd probably have to go the same as Pilch. I think it'll be tight, and then Melbourne will Melbourne up by 2 goals heading into 3/4 time. You can picture the commentators saying the comeback's coming, and then Melbourne just shut it out. So, Rowie, I know you got similar margin, but what's your scoreline?
Yeah, I'm very similar. I've got the same score as Pilch for for the Dogs. I've got them getting 50. Yeah, I've got Melbourne winning 94-56, and I've got the same mindset as you boys. I've got it relatively close throughout a lot, especially the first half of the game. Maybe a 3 to 4 goal margin where the Dogs can still hang on, but the D's definitely have the upper hand. And then it gets to the last quarter, and I think the D's kick 6 goals to 1 or something. So I think that's just the scenario I've got playing out in my head. But I can see every scenario. I can see it being close. I can even see the Dogs, running away with it and thinking, it was too good to be true for the D's. But no, I think this one might just be the most likely one of the D's running home with it in the end and making the game appear not as close as it actually was. But yeah, I've got it. What's that margin? I think it's 38 points, which is actually pretty sizable. But yeah, I think most of the damage is going to be done to the latter half of the game because as we've seen these big games, if a team gets rolling in the last quarter, it's hard to stop because the other team has just given up. They're depleted. They've played a whole season and they know they're going to lose the grand final. And there's not much motivation to come back once you've lost. And the D's will just be running with it. And usually in those moments, it's harder to not kick goals than kick them. So yeah, I've got that scenario playing out for me.
Yeah, so pretty much all the same thing there. Norm Smith, boys. I'll be honest, I'm actually surprised how large the odds are for this. I know there's 44 candidates for it, or 46 if the medical sub gets on and plays a blinder. But yeah, I think Clayton Oliver is the favourite at 650. I'll be honest, I'm going to be boring and back him in. I can see it, he just narrowly, he was predicted as one of the Brownlow favourites and he's missed out on that one. So I can picture Melbourne win. The experts reward Oliver for a great season and what will be a pretty good performance with a Norm Smith. My backup would probably have to be Gorney. My only hesitancy with Gorney is that's obviously a huge mismatch on paper, so surely the Dogs are preparing heavily for that one, and also a ruckman, I don't know who won it in the past, but I was looking at the last 20 winners and a ruckman hasn't won it, so that puts me off Gorney a little bit. This will actually be the first Melbourne Norm Smith medalist, fun fact, so they've never won one. Pilch, who are you going with for the norm?
Christian Petrarca.
Yeah, fair enough. I think Petrarca's like $7, Gorney's like $8.50, and Bont's like $8. It's all very close in there with those four. Rowie, who are you going with here?
Yeah, I've also got Petrarca in a Melbourne win. Petrarca being a goal-kicking mid, if he has 25 and kick 2, I think that's going to stick in the minds of the umps. The umps, this one, the Norm Smith deciders, whoever they are, they're going to stick in the minds of them pretty heavily. So, I'm going to have Petrarca. I don't mind if there's a few rogue ones, like Jake Lever at $26. I actually don't mind that, given I could definitely see him like breaking the record for most intercept marks and stuff like that. There's Norton, if the Dogs up and he kicks a bag, which I actually don't see because I've contradicted myself there. I've said that Melbourne's defence is impenetrable, but there's a few ones in there which you don't mind, but I think it'll be Petrarca.
Yeah, I'd love to see like Christian Salem get up. I don't think they would give it to that kind of player personally, but you never know. Also would love to see May or Lever get it because they've had unbelievable seasons and not really the kind of blokes who are going to pick up many awards in their life. First goal scorer, obviously pretty random prediction here, but it's one of the favourites on game day of the granny. I know my family sometimes does it, and the rest of us, I don't know much either, but we know nothing about footy. I'm backing in the boy Cody here. He's paying $13, which is not the greatest odds, I'll be honest, but just can see him. He's come back into the team. He's going to be full of fire. Seems like someone who's not going to like shy away from the occasion. And I can see them, maybe a few shocks go through the stadium as Doggies kick the first goal and Cody's just going off his nut. So, I can see that happening. Pilch, first goal scorer, mate.
I'm going to go with Christian Petrarca.
He's just backing him for the clean slate. That must be paying quite a bit, to be fair.
Yeah, I think it'll be paying a lot, and I can just envision it like 30 seconds into the game, he gets forward at a stoppage, bangs one in, and it's just like absolute scenes. Can already see it happening. So, yeah.
Mate, if Petrarca kicks on in 30 seconds, it would be hard for Melbourne fans to bloody calm themselves down because the writing would be on the wall. That would be a great way to start it. Rowie, who are you going here?
Yeah, I always have a lot of these envisions before the game. I can see it playing out for about 5 minutes of a bit of scrappy footy, but I can see it's going to be a dry game, which is good. So hopefully a decent scoring affair, which is what we all love. So I've got Ben Brown clunking one and having a set shot from about 30 metres out, and obviously not the most exciting player to kick one, but because of that reason, it's almost more exciting. Everyone gets around him. He gives a massive fist pump, come on, not the type of player you'd expect to do that, and hence everyone gets around him from the Melbourne lineup. So I can see Benny Brown, taking a big mark, and then you're gonna be thinking, are Melbourne gonna run over the top of them? Are they gonna take it away from them? Like similar to what we've seen in past years, like Collingwood West Coast, I think is an example of that, where Pies kick like the first 5. I think we're gonna be maybe thinking, is this gonna happen? Because they're gonna look on fire, the D's, but. I've got Ben Brown.
Yeah, I'm actually scarred from first. I was just thinking about it then. First goal scorer bets on grand final day. I think it was Sydney Dogs, and it was either, I can't remember, someone either kicked it behind that I had money on, like the first behind, or he had like a set shot and like Buddy ran around him and asked for the ball, something like that. There was some bullshit thing, and I thought I was home, but he cooked it. I can't remember who it was either. I might have to do some research after this. And finally, most touches, pretty weird one. I'm not sure why I included it, but I know some people will have their same game multis going. I'm going Rogue. He had the most touches for Melbourne in the prelim, and I can just see the Dogs putting a lot of work into trying to match up on Clover and Petrarca in the stoppages. Who's that leave free? Mr. Jack Viney paying $21. I reckon he'll have. I don't think anyone will have huge touches. Back him in for like 33. I think he had 32 on the prelim, so we'll round up to 33. Pilch, most touches?
Christian Petrarca, once again. I just think I can just see him having an absolute blinder.
Mate, like this sounds dominant blinder from Christian Petrarca. The
like
Norman Smith first goal scorer.
35 and 2.
That's cruising to a Norm
35
Smith.
and 2.
That's one of the all-time greatest grand final performances. But I can see it. I can see it for sure. Rowie, most touches.
I was tempted to say someone like Christian Salem here because I can envision him, a new favourite word on here, racking up like 35 plus off the half back line, and just going under the radar. I think in a similar game, I think Basher Hooley played in the year he should have won the Norm Smith. I can see him playing that sort of a game, but went safe with Jack McRae, who's I think gotten it both times this year or equalled it. So I think win or lose, I think McRae's going to rack up 30 plus. So it's just safe to go him.
Yeah, I think he had like 36 in the prelim or something. So yeah, pretty much a lock for 30 plus. Yeah, I'm feeling Christian Salem, Nolan Smith. I've got a feeling. But anyways, not sure why. I'm not sure what that is about. But that'll do us for the final episode of in-season action. Obviously, as I mentioned, we'll be either doing some review episodes or some trade period free agency stuff, as we do have a professional list manager on our list of talent. So yeah, that's been it for another episode. Huge episode today, I reckon. We haven't done our ratings for a while. I'll give us an 8.7 out of 10. I think we're pretty good today. Good feeling. Sun's out. It's a nice day. But yeah, huge. I forget it's a public holiday, but massive day of sport tomorrow. Man City, Chelsea as well. So I'll be changing over at 3/4 time, if that's allowed. But yeah, looking forward to that. And yeah, go. Actually, I won't say go either team. Just good luck to both teams. Go Cody. Hopefully, as a blinder kicks 3. And yeah, thanks, boys.
Cheers.